Welcome, stranger. I don't know who you are. You're doing a Lupin the Third panel. What's up?
Hey. Hi, JP. I'm Emma. Welcome, everybody. We're back again at Anime Lockdown 2023. Last time we were here was 2021. How is everyone doing today? If you're new to an Emma panel, well, get ready for a ride. This panel will follow a similar style of my last one, a historical analysis of Lady Oscar, the Rose of Versailles. However, we can expect quite a few differences as well, to say the least. I'm going to be a bit more animated than before. For one, it's not at, I think I went on at 11 in the morning last time, and this one's a little bit less heavy of an anime topic, obviously Lupin being a bit more fun of a series than Rose of Versailles, which is just sad. And also coming off of that 2008 anime bubble, which just really bummed me out because, man, did I remember my teenage years during that. I'll leave some time at the end for questions, as always. I'm excited to share some of my passions once more. History, and also including one of my number one passions, which is Lupin the Third. Start with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Lupin the Third. He was written and illustrated by Monkey Punch and first appeared in Weekly Manga Action on August 10th, 1967. A little headcanon of my own here. That is what I put as his birthday, making Lupin a Leo, which fits if you really look up the Leo star sign. Lupin III, he's a character of debated origin, but he is ultimately known as the world's greatest thief. And his persona of being a gentleman thief was inspired largely by the fictional gentleman thief created by Maurice Leblanc. Yes, we are actually back in France. This is just another Lady Oscar panel. These traits and aspects were also mixed with the likes of James Bond. Jokes, we're not actually back in France. As you're likely unsurprised by, the manga was met with several copyright issues. Monkey Punch did not ask permission to use the Arsène Lupin name, and at the time, Japan did not enforce trade copyrights. By the time Leblanc's estate actually began launching legal action in Japan, the name was considered to have entered in common use. However, this was not the case in North America and in Europe, and several foreign releases of Lupin III media dropped the Lupin III title, and the character himself was renamed to Rupin or Wolf, which I have a bias for. In France, now you have to forgive me, even though I studied French history as well as the French language, for 6 years, you would not be able to tell, judging by my pronunciation shortly. In France, the series was known as Edgar Detective Cambrioleur, Edgar Detective Burglar, with Lupin himself renamed as Edgar de la Cambriole, Edgar of Burglary. So that's a bit about Lupin. However, every pro needs a team. First, you got Daisuke Jigen. He's an ace marksman, and he always wears his trademark hat, except when it's blown off of his head. Goemon Ishikawa, a master swordsman who also looks like an Edo period samurai, and he looks very out of place with the gang. Fujiko Mine, the mysterious femme fatale. And trying to destroy the fun of their escapades is Inspector Koichi Zenigata at Interpol. Lupin is a lasting franchise. That sentence does not really encapsulate how much it is, but let me kind of paint you a picture. It has several manga, 6 animated television series, 2 separate spin-off animated series, one of which was Zero this past anime season, showing Lupin in his childhood, 2 versions of a pilot film, 11 animated theatrical films, 27 animated TV specials, 5 OVAs, original video animation, 2 musicals, one of which was trying to obtain Marie Antoinette's broken to bits necklace and is also one of my favorite pieces of Lupin media to date. 2 live action films, so many CDs and soundtracks, several video games, and even a few theme park attractions, notably the attraction at Universal Studios Japan in 2019. Most recently, you can catch them in a McDonald's commercial and have crossed over with Cat's Eye, a series in the 1980s created by Tsukasa Hojo. And if you're wondering if I'm counting Lupin the Eighth, I am, but I forgot to write it in there. It's in there in my heart. So the special we're going to be talking about today is Lupin the Third Alcatraz Connection. It was released on August 3rd, 2001, and it is the 13th Lupin TV special out of 27. It is directed by Hideki Tonikatsu and written by Hiroshi Kashiwabara. I didn't even take Japanese, and that sounded better than my French. It was influenced by the new Lupin the Third manga, and this can be seen primarily in the fact that it took place in San Francisco, and as well as in Zenigata's partner, Terry. Alcatraz Connection is the first digitally animated Lupin special and is the first digitally animated Lupin piece overall. Now, there's a lot that happens in this special in an hour and a half time, and I'm going to try cramming it into this hour panel, but I'm going to start with giving a synopsis from this particular special. Zenigata arrives on the Machine Gun Kelly, a casino on the water owned by the Mafia, because Lupin plans on stealing the casino's money. Lupin and his gang manages to break into the ship's vault, but was unable to escape with the money due to Zenigata's shooting. However, there was another purpose the ship had, one that Lupin was aware of, to search for a sunken ship filled with gold. Lupin managed to steal this data while he was on the ship. However, now they have to contend with Zenigata, the Mafia, and a secret organization whose base is under Alcatraz, as they attempt to uncover the secret behind the organization and the sunken treasure. Speaking of Alcatraz, let's talk a little bit about The Rock. No, not The Rock as in Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but The Rock as in Alcatraz, which was dubbed Alcatrazius in 1775. Alcatraz actually means strange bird. Ironic when you know about one of its famous inmates, Robert Stroud, aka the Birdman of Alcatraz. Alcatraz was at the time the biggest concrete structure that had been made. And it was made by the military to be a citadel during the time of the gold rush and to also protect the San Francisco Bay. It operated as such from 1850 to 1933 before it was transferred to the Department of Justice. Upon being transferred to the Department of Justice, it was grown into the prison that was born during the rise of organized crime in the 1930s. It was the last stop for dangerous and violent offenders. Your inmates included Al Capone, George Machine Gun Kelly, and the aforementioned Robert Stroud. Al Capone was not in prison, for murder or anything, but more tax evasion. So be careful with your taxes when you file them this weekend, actually. Conditions were harsh for prisoners. That shouldn't even need to be said, considering it was a prison. You only had 4 expectations that needed to be met for inmates, which were food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. After this, everything else was a privilege and had to be earned. Max occupancy in a cell was 1 person per cell, which actually does not sound that bad. And cell block D was called the Hole, which was reserved for solitary confinement. And it caused a lot of people to go insane from the conditions. I don't know if it was called the Hole as in the hole as a gateway to hell, or the hole because it literally had, for your bathroom, was a hole in the ground. Some of the privileges you asked that you could earn, well, there was an Alcatraz band that was called the Rock Islanders, and food in comparison was actually quite decent. Alcatraz was famous in a lot of reasons, but one of the most famed reasons was that it was quote unquote inescapable. And I say quote unquote because there were several escape attempts, one of which is a giant question mark on whether or not it was successful. First of all, you have your Battle of Alcatraz escape attempt from May 2nd to May 4th in 1946. This was an escape attempt made by armed convicts. And 2 officers were killed along with 3 inmates, and it ultimately failed. Whamp, whamp. Then you have, more famously, the escape attempt in 1962. In June 1962, brothers Clarence and John Anglin and Frank Morris escaped the island. Along with Alan West, who was another conspirator who did not escape, they tucked paper mache into their beds, broke out via ventilation ducts that they widened with spoons from the dining hall, maybe during those Rock Islanders practices, who knows, and used an improvised raft made out of raincoats to make their escape. I should note, too, that each inmate was given one raft or one raincoat and one raincoat only, and the raft was made with some 30 to 40 raincoats. So I have to wonder if these inmates were just kept being like, hey, I lost my raincoat. Can you give me another? And they would just get one. In 1979, the FBI concluded, based upon circumstantial evidence, that the 3 men had drowned that night, but nothing ever really came up for certain. There were only bits and pieces of the raft discovered. No bodies came up. The case to this day remains open and active, and the prison today has aged progressed photos of what the escapees would look like presently. And before this escape happened, regulations were actually introduced in the 1950s. This was all before it led to its closing on March 21st, 1963. And it was closed as the institution was too expensive to maintain. It was 3 times more than other federal prisons, probably because it was on a rock in the middle of the San Francisco Bay. The island was then occupied by the Sioux in 1964 before becoming a park service in 1972. And you can actually visit Alcatraz Island today. I did in 2019. I could only walk the island for an hour before I had to get the ferry to get on my boat. And so I sped run the entire prison. I wish I could go back and see more. I just looked at the chat for a brief second and saw mention of inmates being eaten by bugs. Oh boy. So, a big part of the special gets a little bit into something that a big instance in history with John F. Kennedy assassination. And we'll get into it more as to why that fits in the special. But beforehand, I really want to get into the background of the assassination itself, so you have a deeper understanding of this. It was the first of 5 major assassinations. So why do I say 5 instead of 4? John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., but also I consider my man Sam Cooke. 5 major civil rights figures killed in a short period of time in the 1960s. Kennedy was the 4th president to be assassinated and was the last president to die in office. This occurred on November 22nd, 1963 at 12:30 p.m. in Texas. 2 shots, which were determined to come from 2 shots hit the president. The second was determined to be fatal. The first went through the president's throat, and the second was the one that struck the head. And the shots were determined to have come from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository Building. Determined that the shooter was Lee Harvey Oswald, and he was caught after about 1.5 hours. And 2 days later, during transport, he is killed by Jack Ruby, who was a nightclub owner. President John F. Kennedy is declared dead at 1:00 p.m. at Parkland Memorial Hospital. And then following after that, Lyndon B. Johnson assumes presidency and establishes the Warren Commission, which is chaired by Chief Justice Earl Warren. The Warren Commission is created to investigate the assassination and conclude what occurred. And among this Warren Commission was also future President Gerald R. Ford from Grand Rapids. There's no live recording of this event happening as it wasn't televised, but we do have several eyewitness photographs and videos like the one seen at the top corner here. One of which by Abraham Zapruder, who recorded the most researched clip, which is only about 26.6 seconds and is silent. And this is now called the Zapruder film. The Warren Commission ended up finding that Lee Harvey Oswald was the sole shooter and that there was no evidence that Oswald was involved with another group. They also determined that Oswald was an employee of the Texas School Book Depository and was under surveillance by the FBI due to his ties to the Soviet Union. Remember, we are actively involved in the Cold War at this point. Jack Ruby was also determined to have acted alone. There's some of the historical background behind it, so we're going to get into the madness here. Whew. Conspiracy theories abound. There are several aspects of the assassination and the investigation that led to an expansive list of conspiracy theories. And when I say expansive, I mean expansive. You have about 1,000 to 2,000 books that have been published regarding these conspiracy theories. Mind you, very few have been written by actual historians. So what are some of the reasons why these conspiracy theories came to be popping out of the snow like daisies? You have 3 separate parties investigating. One, you have the Warren Commission, the HSCA, and the FBI and CIA. The HSCA, short for House Select Committee on Assassinations. These groups all agreed with the Warren Commission's finding that Oswald indeed killed Kennedy, but that there were several other things that were flawed in the investigation, including the FBI's investigation itself. Also, one of the main issues was rooted in the fact that the route itself had too many turns, thousands of windows, and not enough personnel to watch these windows. So their way to solve this issue was just to use nobody to watch the windows. That seems like a great way to solve that. Another reason why people started to have a giant question mark over the JFK assassination is really seen in the fact that the Warren Commission's report was delayed several times in its full release. The Warren Commission's report has been finally and mostly released to the public as of December 2022. However, this took a few efforts. The Assassination Records Review Board, say that 3 times fast, created to only review submitted records and to not make any conclusions about the findings, released some 60,000 documents from 1994 to 1998. All remaining documents were to be released by October 2017, with some exceptions. 1, continued postponement is made necessary by an identifiable harm to the military, defense, intelligence operations, law enforcement, or conduct of foreign relations. And 2, the identifiable harm is of such gravity that it outweighs the public interest in disclosure. So the Trump administration claimed that in 2018, after that October 2017 date passed, that they would not block the release. Instead, they didn't do so until October 2021. And this was not reviewed again until this past December. So 97% of the collection is now available, and some records will remain sealed until June 2023. Another thing that's really getting a lot of people's eyebrows raised, the autopsy was botched. The hospital where JFK was taken to, Parkland Memorial Hospital, they were not initially notified that they were bringing the now assassinated president to them. And the U.S. government, during so, was actively trying to find a way to transport the remains back to D.C., and due to the severity of his wounds, he could not be placed directly into a casket. They had to line the casket with plastic. Dr. Earl Rose, he was the medical examiner of Dallas County in Texas at this time. He actually performed the autopsies of Oswald and Jack Ruby. He felt Kennedy's body was his to autopsy, and he was right in saying that, by the way. But he was refused access, and improper paperwork had to be drafted to get JFK's remains out of Dallas. And during transport, the casket that held his body, mind you, this is now estimated to be what had been a $30,000 casket. Caskets are heavy. This casket obtained cracks due to being dropped by the men carrying it. It got destroyed, not only because that plastic didn't end up really working very well, but it was dropped several times. Not a good look, not their best work. John C. McAdams quotes that this is the greatest and grandest of all conspiracy theories. Public opinion has consistently shown that most Americans believe there was conspiracy to kill Kennedy. And in 2003, a Gallup poll showed about 75% of Americans did not believe Oswald acted alone. 2009, 76% of Americans believed JFK was killed as a part of conspiracy. And this has had a lasting impact as one of the biggest turns in history, followed by the Watergate scandal, to demonstrate Americans' distrust in the government. Before that, most people generally had a positive relationship with their government. We got more. We're just getting started on this. When I said there was a lot, and we're really getting into the most commonly agreed on ones, the ones that I had to sift through and be like, okay, I think I can include this. You have the HSCA, as mentioned earlier. They stated in a report that the CIA had purposely withheld information, which was not inaccurate, from the Warren Commission. And they believe that JFK was killed as a part of conspiracy theory, but it should be noted that they do not explain beyond this. There is rumored to be another film from a different angle than the Zapruder film. And this film is said to have shown puffs of smoke and another person by now infamous grassy knoll, which sounds exactly like it is. This video is supposedly lost. Convenient. Here's a little ditty that we might look into a little bit more. You have a potential mob hit. Attorney General Robert Kennedy was attempting to go after organized crime in a way that was unprecedented before, considering that several quote-unquote families had worked with JFK's father to get him elected. These include crime syndicates in Chicago, Miami, and New Orleans. Many crime bosses did not care for Kennedy after the failed Bay Pigs invasion. And I should mention that even Jimmy Hoffa had ordered the president's assassination, but we can't very well go and ask Jimmy Hoffa about how this worked out now. Third, Lyndon B. Johnson. He was the vice president to Kennedy. Rumors included LBJ being dropped from the ticket. And Kennedy was hesitant to go to Dallas for re-election, as supposedly the political climate in Dallas was supposedly not safe. He also supposedly had a mistress named Madeline Brown that implicated his involvement. And convicted felon Roger Stone believed Johnson played a part, but he also says that Ted Cruz's father was tied to Oswald, such in that National Enquirer image that we had before with the Zodiac Killer link. So take that how you'd like to. Cuban government. Theorists state that Fidel Castro ordered a hit in retaliation for all the times that the CIA ordered to assassinate Fidel Castro. The Soviet government could have been a point to have conspired against John F. Kennedy. Oswald did have connection with Russia. He did defect to the Soviet Union before. Nikita Khrushchev, according to some theorists, could have been motivated by having to stand down in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And they continue. We got the Umbrella Man. This one's one of my favorites simply because of how ridiculous it sounds. The Umbrella Man, he's subject of theories due to having an umbrella decided not being rainy. Maybe the Umbrella Man just like shade. I know I do. I don't want to get sunburnt. There were thoughts that the umbrella was actually a dart weapon, which I actually did exist at that time, and that's really freaking cool. But turns out in 1978, Louis Stephen Witt, he admitted to being the Umbrella Man and was using the umbrella as a symbol of protest against JFK's father, Joseph Kennedy, and his policy of appeasement, and probably his policy of being a terrible person. This one's probably the most agreed upon one. The CIA being involved somehow. There were claims that Oswald was a secret operative picked up after a shakeup in the bureaucracy of the CIA following the Bay of Pigs failure. The CIA and FBI withheld information and tampered with files in what they call a benign cover-up. Tampering with files was backed up by former U.S. Army intelligence officer John W. Newman, who published evidence that these organizations tampered with files on Oswald. Both organizations withheld information that may have alerted authorities to the possible danger the president was in Dallas. Evidence was either mishandled, lost, or withheld. And not to say that tampering with evidence and things wasn't a thing that happened, as we had previously discussed with the morgue botch. Suffice to say that most of the evidence wasn't dealt with in a proper manner. And this is really what was displayed in the now public pieces of the Warren Report. They mainly just wanted to cover their mistakes. There were several inconsistencies in reports and testimony, but could this all just be chalked up to human error? The Warren Commission determined that 3 bullets were fired. 1 missed, 1 passed through JFK's throat and into Governor Connolly, and the 3rd being the fatal headshot. The 2nd bullet was found later, perhaps in a gold bar. We'll talk about this. This also gave rise to the single bullet theory. Some claim that the bullet had passed through JFK and into Connolly, was missing too little mass, and that the trajectory would be impossible. However, some critics skeptical of the official single bullet theory have stated that the bullet's trajectory, which hit Kennedy above the right shoulder blade and passed through his neck, according to the autopsy, would have had to change course to pass through Connolly's ribcage and fracture his wrist. Kennedy's death certificate locates the bullet at about the level of the 3rd thoracic vertebra, which some claim was not high enough to exit his throat. Furthermore, since the shooter was in a 6th floor window of the book depository building, the bullet traveled downward. The autopsy descriptive sheet displays a diagram of the president's body with the same low placement as the 3rd thoracic vertebra. A special in 2004 called JFK Beyond the Magic Bullet recreated these shots using current forensics and technology, and they deemed it possible to be able to hit the 2 men with 1 bullet. Therefore, you wouldn't need something called the magic bullet. I see a comment saying, I'm still amazed the magic bullet conspiracy theory still persists. Well, here we go. Here's a diagram of the magic bullet theory. Good look at this. Why on earth am I showing this one? In my opinion, the magic bullet theory is one of the most outlandish theories to date. Surely it wouldn't be included in Alcatraz Connection. It is, isn't it? I see. Well, we have to start somewhere, I guess, before we really get into that. As mentioned before, Lupin is seen as the start of the special on a casino ship, the Machine Gun Kelly, aptly named. Lupin seems to not only be in it for the money theft, but also to steal data held on the ship. Data containing a shipwreck at the bottom of the San Francisco Bay filled with gold. In grand splendor escaping, complete with a giant inflatable Nessie, he manages to trace the bills that he was unable to keep in his possession. Eventually, during a wild goose chase on a cable car. Did you know that Jigen's favorite color is purple? You find it out in this special. The bills are tracked to the headquarters of the then presidential candidate. And I know what you're thinking. Emma, this is already a hot mess. I haven't even gotten to the slide title, and I haven't even gotten back to the magic bullet theory. We're just getting started. That partner that Zenigata has, well, his name is Terry. It turns out Terry He's not only a descendant of Al Capone, but he is also the boss of a mysterious Secret Seven, which is a San Francisco crime syndicate. And all the members of this crime syndicate, they're all descendants from legendary crime bosses and criminals, i.e. the descendant of Machine Gun Kelly, not that one, as you see on the right of that photo. And they're looking to recreate paradise. Paradise being an entire city under Alcatraz Island where the prisoners lived in joy and luxury. See, the food being as good as it was just a sign, guys. But this life of grandeur changed once JFK and Bobby Kennedy came into office. And upon finding out about the underground prison suite, they shut the operation down, as seen on the next slide here. I don't want to get sniped by TMS for adding clips. If you know TMS, that you know how they roll. As mentioned on the previous slide, apparently, instead of closing in 1963, due to being wildly expensive, being a prison on a secluded island at all, Bobby Kennedy found out the truth about Alcatraz and forced its closure, ruining paradise. Those Kennedy bastards, they crushed our paradise. So what is a crime syndicate to do? I know, Goemon looks pretty in every special. And yes, this special is off the rails. And we're just getting started. So what is a crime syndicate to do? They had the Kennedy brothers assassinated. I really like the images, the recreation of the Zapruder film in this special. It really adds to it. So they had the Kennedy brothers assassinated. And what are those gold bars? The ones that were stuck in that shipwreck that we mentioned earlier. Everyone's going through a lot of trouble to find these gold bars, including the Secret Seven. And Lupin says during an altercation with Terry that the evidence released to the public in the Warren Commission was fake. What do you mean fake? Yeah, that's an actual image of me at the top there. What do you mean fake, Lupin? Okay. All right. Apparently, but do not quote me on this. Inside of one of those gold bars are documents regarding the John F. Kennedy assassination. We got the Zapruder film, an 8mm film shot by an average citizen when the assassination occurred. All right, that's cool. We know that existed. We got documents on the assassination plan, okay? I mean, maybe Oswald wrote up something. People write manifestos all the time. And one singular bullet, including the magic bullet. TMS had to go and create a whole new conspiracy theory to add to the thousands we already have by combining several. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I'm a historian. I study history. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because it's also hilarious. Lupin explains it would have needed to fly in this weird trajectory that I can't even explain. Magic bullet. We also have a live look at the CIA right this very second. The FBI agent on my case right now they're dialing in. They're coming for me. So how does this all end? There's a lot in an hour and a half. And we're coming to the end. We're getting too close to the truth. We have to shut it down. Upon arriving at the Rock, the gang finds that so did the CIA. And they're out to destroy the evidence of their screw-ups employees, the ones that were released in December 2022. They're trying to shut that down. And they've set C4 around the entire establishment. And they set these off in a fiery, explosive inferno. It's really giving Chief Brody shooting the tank Jaws is straight up over the top with the incredibly satisfying demise of Terry. You have the image down here, Paradise Lost by John Milton. Now, I know I said I didn't include any clip. I actually lied about that, which I apologize for. I don't like doing that, but I did manage to get a audio clip of that exact moment when that's happening. So I'll play it right now.
Bag up, Terry. Put it in reverse, Terry. Put it in reverse. Oh, Lord, Jesus. Oh, Lord.
Full audio clip from Alcatraz Connection. Oh my goodness. Go. Here's some final thoughts. Oh no, my God, oh no. Me. No, we're good. We're good.
Oh God, I walked away for 2 seconds and the audio died. What happened?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah. We made it to the end though. The end. Man, that was a lot. So what are some of my thoughts on the JFK assassination? First off, I want to say that this was actually a lot harder to research than the French Revolution. It's not just that I have a deeper knowledge and understanding of the French Revolution, but that topic is also pretty based in fact. What is written in the books is generally agreed upon. It's dense, but in a way that, at least to me, is easier to absorb. JFK's assassination is considered recent history. My parents were very much alive. They were very young during it. It was really a catalyst for a lot of events happening after it. You had the growth of the civil rights movement, as well as the growing distrust in the government seen during the Vietnam War, and at a much greater scale, the Watergate scandal. There's so much about it that is surrounded in conspiracy and wildness. One of my history professors in college said, I am a historian, not a conspiracy theorist, and that always stuck with me. Based on the information released in December 2022, it appears that anything covered up was done so to cover up the various mistakes that the FBI and CIA made during that time. What a surprise. These are organizations that are not supposed to mess up, but they did. And they're human too, I think. I hope. I'm inclined to believe what is there and what is written, with recognition that there may be more behind the sidelines, under the curtain, so to speak, but maybe we just aren't meant to know that. And you know what? I think I'm okay with that. On Alcatraz Connection, this is actually one of my favorite Lupin specials. It's fun. It's crazy, obviously. I mean, we just discussed it a little bit. I could talk all day, all night about Alcatraz Connection. It's so much fun. It's very well animated, and several of the characters are at their best. Zenigata in particular. Not only is he my favorite of the five, I have this theory that if Zenigata has a strong presence in a special, it's probably at least mid-tier, and I have yet to be wrong on this. Yet to be wrong on this theory. While obviously they went off the rails, figuratively and literally, they did get some things correct. The 8mm film mention, that did exist. The bullet exhibit is called CE399. I have to read that very slow so I don't say 39. CE399. This was the actual exhibit name of the bullet, and they do use that in the image where they're talking about the bullet in the gold bar. Robert Kennedy was indeed the Attorney General and did indeed start working against organized crime. And it ends about there. Unless you truly believe that there is a city under Alcatraz. I mean, I went there and I cannot say that I saw any indication of such. But like I said, I also had to speed run it in an hour, so I very much could be wrong. We don't know. If someone wants to go to the island and see for themselves, be my guest. And the last part, on Lupin. Oh boy. If you know me, you know how I feel about Lupin III. It's a series that found me during hardship of job loss and then divorce. It's brought me heartache, but also so much love. And also my creativity. I cosplay as the characters, collected numerous amount of figures, created my own original characters, written my own stories, host on a podcast, and now created a panel. I love Lupin. There's so much to be said for it. I mean, the fact that it just will not die either says a lot for it. It's also mostly episodic, so if you're thinking about taking the leap, take it. Discotheque has also released most of the titles for Lupin, even the ones that seem lost to the void. Earliest, the most recent one that they've released is Angel Tactics. That's one that I never thought would see the light of day. So please support the official release. And speaking of podcasts, please listen to Sideburns and Cigarettes, Lupin the Third Podcast, where we talk about a monkey-faced thief, his friends, and their many adventures, where we're talking about the animated Lupin the Third franchise in mostly chronological order. I am the newest co-host on, and it has just been nothing short of a treat. We're currently talking about part 1, so please listen to us. There are links right there. If you want to hear more about Lupin, please give us a listen. Finally, I want to extend once more my sincerest gratitude to everyone that showed up. Like before, there are several members of my family and many friends watching this. Are my parents still proud of me after this one? Probably not. I'm okay with that, I think. I hope everyone learned something new about the Kennedy assassination, the podunk crazy theories behind it. Thanks always to the people that reviewed my content, both for correctness and for grammar. And thanks to JP and Tony for giving me the chance to be a complete dork once again. Seems that you guys get a kick out of it. And that's all I really got. Not as content heavy as the last one.
That's fine. And I don't know if you can out-dork me. I've been screaming about Grappler Baki for the last 20 years. At least your cartoon is something people like.
Yeah. We all got that one that we're just very, very passionate about. Lupin the Third is mine.
I have 3 Grappler Baki figures on my shelf.
That's okay. I have a huge Emeraldus and Maytel tattoo on my thigh, so I feel it.
So you've got about 17 minutes if you're open to questions, I guess about your panel or about, anime history stuff in general. Or I should say anime that creative licenses history. I can't speak right now. I'm on my 4th cup of coffee.
That's okay. How many Lupin Pit figures on my shelf? Are we talking about large or small? Because we're talking all of them, all sizes. I've counted recently. I have probably 100.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was even more when I was living with my ex at the time, because he was also very much a big Lupin collector, and we just had so much. It was insane. And then obviously during the lockdown period, I wasn't going to cons, and that was usually how I got Lupin figures. It was always fun hunting for them that way rather than just going on like eBay. But I didn't have any other choice during that period, so I ended up buying quite a few. just to scratch that itch,
God.
scratch that addiction.
I thought I was overdoing it. I have 10 REM figures. Like, I have too many, but 100 Lupin figures is wild.
Don't ever worry about having too much, because I probably have too much Lupin in space.
Somebody's asking what your favorite special/film is. I would assume it's the one you did the panel on.
Alcatraz Connection is in my top 5. Obviously, there's a ton of Lupin. My favorite movie for Lupin is Mystery of Mamo. That dub is incredible, for one. And also, I think it has the Lupin cast in their best, at their most raw. And also, my favorite special is tied between Episode 0, First Contact, and Tokyo Crisis. But this is definitely within the top 5.
Yeah, Mystery of Mamo, that's the one with like 4 or 5 dubs, right? Which is your favorite?
Obviously, Gedeon dub, 2003, with the current cast, Tony Oliver, Richard Epcar, Michelle. That dub is just peak, is gold. I love it. I'm trying to think of a line right now. That's appropriate. I can't think of any.
I'm curious because I do not collect very much Lupin the Third stuff. From the transition from Discotheque to Sentai, was that seamless? Was it not seamless?
It didn't seem like that big of like a problem, really. Sentai, I believe, took over part 6, and I think they also have Zero. But Zero hasn't been dubbed, and I honestly hope they don't dub it, because I can only hear like Tony Oliver and Richard Epcar as the characters of Lupin and Jigen, and Zero has them younger.
Yeah.
But I know with that one, if they did ever dub that, I've also said Lupin II, who I adore, should be played as David Hayter. David Hayter did play Lupin in a dub of Castle of Cagliostro. And he also plays Snape. Snape. So that is a cool connection between the two series. It did seem seamless. I know that they released Part 6 on Blu-ray, and they tried to make it look as much like the Discotheque Blu-rays as much as possible.
That's
so that kind
nice.
of make it seamless in terms of like aesthetic, physical aesthetic.
Yeah, you worded it better than I did. That's what I was trying to say, is like how it looks next to the rest of the collection.
Yeah, it looks as close as they could. Honestly, they did a good job with that.
All right.
Who's your favorite author of an upcoming Lupin the Third guidebook? I guess aficionado's Chris, since he's the only one doing that. Was TMS on crack? Maybe. I don't know. You'd have to ask them. Do you have the Italian Lupin board game? I do not. I wish I did. Is Rebecca truly the best Lupin girl? It's between her and would you consider Fujiko Lupin girl, or is she like the queen? Fujiko's the queen. So yeah, if you like consider Fujiko not a part of that, Rebecca for sure.
Which is your favorite TV show?
Part 4.
Part 4.
Without a doubt. Part 4, All Rise. That is the start of the Blue Jacket series. I think they put that out on Toonami in 2017. That was really how I started getting into it, was through that. I'd seen it in 2003 when they had it on Adult Swim, when it was the Red Jacket series. I was sneaking into my game room at ungodly hours of the night and saw it, but I don't have a whole lot of recollection of what I saw. So Blue Jacket is really special to me. I just like Part 4. I think the pacing is the best. I think the overall characterization is really strong. And yeah, you have some of the best side characters that I think. I think Part 6, the side characters take away from the story, but in Part 4, they add to it.
So you're telling me that, what is that, 5, 6 years ago, you went down the rabbit hole that deep into 100 figures territory?
Yeah, once it started, it happened real fast. I remember my parents are watching right now, but I was moving out of my house. Obviously, I mentioned that I got divorced, and I was moving out of my house, and I was packing away, like my dad was helping me pack away like my figures. And at that point, I think I had like 6 figures. And so it's just like had like an exponential boom. But I swear to God, I heard my dad do like a deep sigh. Mm. He might tell me that I was wrong, but I felt like I heard it, or at least felt it. Like the sigh of disappointment. And yeah, that was, I had only about like 5 or 6, and now I'm in the weeds, so to speak.
I'm trying to see if there's any more questions. I would ask questions, but I know so little about the series that I kind of can't.
Yeah, I know a lot of people say like with One Piece. I also say Lupin. I would feel like it's almost easier to get into One Piece because it's episodic, rather than like spanning the entire history of 500 episodes. Lupin is just so fun. I have such a great time with it, and like all the characters, they're just so lovable. They're criminals, but they're lovable.
I know somebody asked if you had this board game, and you said you didn't, but have you played it?
I think I might have. Honestly, I know I had a lot of video game cartridges, and I'm trying to think if with that I played the. I swear that I did. I have very little recollection of it. I might have been drinking at the time. So I don't really know. Which Lupin character would you pick as your cellmate in Alcatraz? Well, as you saw, there's one cellmate, one inmate per cell. But if I had to choose, probably Goemon. Honestly, he'd kind of keep to himself the most. I'd probably also keep to myself. I love Lupin. He's probably my second favorite character, but man, would I probably get sick of him in like 10 minutes. I'd be like, oh my God. Goemon, honestly, if I had to pick a cellmate. He seems to like just be chill and just sit there. I like that about him.
Tony is saying Spielberg was going to direct a live-action Lupin film. Is that real?
I feel like I've heard a rumor like that. My friends would probably even know better than me. I can't say for sure if that was like a fever dream that I'm remembering or what. Best Yuji Ono homage track. Not even sure. There's so many. Yuji Ono has such a fire discography. Do you prefer to structure Lupin as an anthology or continuous narrative? I kind of like it, again, best how it did in part 4. It did in part 5. I think there is a lot to be said about the episodic nature that makes it a lot more fun. But I do also like the overarching story, so long as it doesn't get bogged down in what it's trying to be. I know like with part 6, they tried to do like an overarching narrative, but honestly, the guest episodes ended up being better than the plot heavy episode. So it's kind of a mixture of both. But all the Lupin continuing stories get bogged down. Yeah, they kind of
do. We've talked about favorite Lupin. What about least favorite?
Oh God. Specialized Princess of the Breeze, god awful. That is terrible. I try to come up with positives on most things. Even Twilight Gemini is not really a favorite one for a lot of people or anybody, but I try to come up with things. Princess of the Breeze, I don't really have anything positive to say on it. I think maybe like the soundtrack is good, and that's about it. The Lupin Take Goku. God, get out of here. I know who's saying that too. The baby in Princess of the Breeze looks really weird too. I don't like that. I tend to like all 6 of the parts. Part 6 is probably the weakest of the television series, but like I still liked it overall. So I don't really have a least favorite in terms of like part 1 through 6, but definitely just like special wise, Princess of the Breeze. I really do not like that one.
What else is going on? There's supposed to be some new Rose of Versailles stuff coming up. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah.
I want to say it's like a movie, or I might be misremembering.
I think it's a movie. I haven't heard much beyond that, but Lord, was I pumped for that. I'm hoping that there is just like new things for all the stuff I love. I'm really hoping for new like Leijiverse someday. Not sure if that'll happen. Rest in peace, Matsumoto. But yeah, new Rose of Versailles. Hopefully it'll give me even more content to really look into, like compare and contrast on historical references. Because obviously I was so impressed with the original series and how accurate it was in terms of historical accuracy.
I still need to watch it. I've now bought it 3 times.
That's so good.
And I guess with my newfound unemployment, I can finally read and watch that series.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, like I said, it's a lot. I definitely was more animated with this one because it's just a lot more fun of a topic. Rose of Versailles, like the French Revolution, it's just a very heavy, very dense topic that just kind of makes you sad a little. It's like, man, that does not feel good.
I guess before I embark into that journey, would you recommend the manga or the anime first, or should I do them at the same time?
I did the anime before the manga. So I'd probably even do that, honestly.
Are they different, or are they fairly like similar? I know very little about the series.
If I can recall, they're fairly similar.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't really picked up the manga recently, but if I can recall, they're fairly similar. And it's said in the chat, the anime is stronger product of style and execution, and that the anime is Daryl Surratt says the anime is quite different than the manga, but the manga is beautiful. So, my memory might be off. My memory might be off.
That's fine. Cool. We've got about 3 more minutes, so if anybody has any more questions, or if anybody else wants to scream about the baby, Sam Googled the baby and was not happy with the results.
Yeah, I told you it's awful. God, I hate that.
I will look it up once we're done, because I don't want to. I don't want to put my Google browser on the screen.
Yeah, ruin your day. Jeez.
There's many a times while doing panels, and I forgot that the entire audience could see my computer. And oops.
I got a question here. What do you think is next in terms of a future Lupin series, in terms of tone and style? What do I think is next? Like what I want, or what I think will be next overall? Because what I think will be next overall, I think they'll probably do a 7th part. I really hope they make it different from part 6. Honestly,
Magical Girl series.
Magical Girl series. I have always said, I was like, Lupin musical episode win. What I want a TMS animated Lupin II Shinobu series from Lupin Zero. Anything like Lupin Zero, I swear to God, please give me it. Telecom back for anything. Also, the next Koichi, next Koike film.
Takeshi, not Kazuo.
Yeah, Koike. Yeah. those are really what I would want and would hope would be next, but I don't have a loud voice with that. So,
well, thank you so much for being a part of Anime Lockdown again. Thank you for helping out with the chat.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And do you have any cons or anything coming up where people can say hi to you? I know you were at Otakon. Was it last year or the year before?
2 years ago. I'm trying to get back again this year, and I'm trying to make Colossal Con work at least for a day. So those are my 2 current plans, but nothing really set in stone yet.
All right. Well, I'm sure I will talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for joining us, Emma. You have a good day.
Thanks, JP. Thanks, you too.